How are you doing?
All right, buddy. Well, everybody, welcome to Thursday Night Live. We appreciate you guys coming here. Make sure you keep your cups full of beer because that's part of why we're here. Today, Tim's hunting and he bailed on us. Right, Tim? Go this way? You want me over here? So anyways, tonight we got Jarod Brown coming as a guest instructor for us. You can find him on Instagram as Mountain Man Flies. Yep. This is your second day tying?
This is my second time.
You watched some YouTube videos yesterday?
Yeah.
So today we're going to be tying a copper john and a pheasant tail. A little bit of a change up from what we've been doing lately with some bigger patterns, some hopper type Chernobyls last week and some streamers and stuff. So now we're going to get a little more delicate. If you run out of material, which I don't think you should, by breaking stuff like the peacock curl or whatever, just come up and let us know. But thanks for coming.
Okay.
Thanks for being here. It's all you, buddy.
I'm very stoked. Well, thanks everybody. So we're going to start off with the pheasant tail. Everyone has got their bead and the hook and everything's all ready to go. So we're just going to take some of the pheasant tail, fiber, whatever you want to call it, small curl. Anyway, we're going to take a small section of the pheasant tail. Roughly 6-7 fibers. Now, I pull it off in such a way that I'm lining up the tips. So I flare it out, and then all the tips are lined up nicely. So when you're doing your tail, they're all lined up. Okay. So we're roughly going to make the tail about 3/4 the length of this hook. This hook is a little bit long, so we're going to shorten up the tail just a little bit. So we're using the hook shank as our measuring. A couple loose wraps to start it, and then cinch it in. You can pull them off, you can cut them off, yeah, whatever you like, yeah. Now there's a lot of different ways of making the bodies of nymphs. Tonight we're gonna change it up a bit and we're gonna use monofilament. So we've got in our little kits, we've got 4X tippet. Where are we at? Everyone's okay? Now you don't want to tie it forward too far. You only want about 3 or 4 wraps to anchor it right close to the end. If we wrap it up too far, we're gonna run out of material to wrap forward with it. Where's everyone at here? I don't want to go too fast. Anyone say, if I'm going too fast for anyone, just let me know. Now, in interest of keeping that body fairly even, we're going to put the mono, we're going to anchor that down and have enough that when we bring the thread forward, we're going to have a nice even body. We started anchoring at the back. Now also, that pheasant tail, we're going to be wrapping forward. So what I did is I folded it back and anchored it down again. And we're just going to build it up with a little bit of thread. So now, when you look, we're going to be starting really close to the back of where the thread is. And all I did was just fold it back. Hence why we don't anchor it down the whole length of the hook, because then when we fold it back, we're going to run out of material to wrap it forward. So a lot of fly tying is thinking about your next step, and keeping track of your end game and what you're trying to achieve.
So you're folding this part back and then tying that in?
Yeah. You're just going to anchor it down with a couple of wraps now, and you might have moved your thread too far forward, and and let me just get in here. So what's happening is, with having your tail so long,
Yeah.
you're going to run out of material to wrap this forward.
Again.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So your anchoring point is going to be just above the tip of your hook, right there.
Okay.
I should have mentioned that, I'm sorry. And then the length of this tail is roughly the distance between there and there.
Okay.
So from
So
here,
just
it
pull it
should
forward a bit
finish.
more?
You can loosen this off, and you can pull this forward underneath your loose thread wraps until you have your desired length, which is going to be roughly around there.
Would you say you're folding this back, wrapping back over?
You're going, yeah, you're pretty good there. I like that. So as we're going to wrap that material forward, you're going to make your body.
Okay.
So your next step is to anchor in your monofilament.
Oh, okay.
Your should be in your kit. Yep. What do we got? What do we got?
So I want to anchor this at the back.
Yep. Your monofilament.
Yep.
Now your monofilament should come pretty close to your bead here for the length of how much you're anchoring down. So we're going to have a easier time keeping that body kind of uniform. How's everyone else doing?
How many wraps on there?
On average, when we're anchoring any material down, it's going to be 4 or 5 wraps when we're doing one little spot. But since we're anchoring and evening out the body, you can go a little crazy
To go ahead
to
again?
keep it all even and anchor all of it into place. How's everyone doing? We're all good? Oops, oh, Jesus, I keep moving. Okay.
You anchored it more in the middle, right? To start.
I anchored it right close to the bend of the hook.
Okay.
So you can unwrap and kind of get more. You're going to need to shorten your tail fibers by pulling this material forward.
Okay. More like that.
Okay.
And a loose wrap.
Yeah. You can do a loose wrap and then let go, and then you can see where your tail fibers are.
Put them a little forward.
So you roughly want it to finish up. Use a little pointing device here. You might not have enough material, but you want the tips of those fibers to be right about there.
Okay.
And you want to be anchoring it just above the tip of that hook.
Just pull it over. I'm missing.
You're missing a bag?
Yeah, I'm not
Just
sure
grab
where
another one. Just grab another one.
It's just the monofilament in the one bag, right?
Well, all that we're really using for the pheasant tail is the mono and the pheasant tail itself with the bead and the hook. So now, where are we at? You all good? We're all good? We can move on? Okay. So now I'm going to take the thicker sections, and we should have enough length now. We can wrap this forward. Now make note of which direction you're wrapping this forward, because we're going to wrap the mono in the opposite direction. So 3 to 4 times around, trying to get this nice and even, should be enough to fill that section of the body.
All the way forward?
No, we're going to leave some room for the thorax, or whatever you want to call it. So if you look, I'm going to do, if you see the back of the bead there, need a better pointing device. We're going to have, from where I've anchored the tail to the bead, we're going to be stopping roughly halfway. Now, tonight we're using the mono, but you can mix this up and you can make this pattern with lots of different colors of wire. Where's everyone at? We're all good? Can we? No, not yet. We'll trim that in a second. So now I'm going to wrap this mono opposite direction so it sits on top of the fibers and reinforces them so those trout teeth don't rip it all off within the first fish. Now in this lighting, I apologize, this might be a little difficult to see that clear mono to get your spacing right, but honestly the fish don't care. We're just trying to do it in such a way that it'll last a little longer.
How many wraps of that?
Well, I ended up doing 4 wraps, moving it forward fairly evenly. It's tough to see, but, and then I'm just going to trim that off nice and flush. And I might as well, since I've got my scissors out, I might as well trim off the excess of my pheasant tail as well.
Both pheasant tail and
Yeah. Now, a real fun way of doing this is to mix it up and do various colors. There's a lot of different colors of pheasant tail out there, different beads. Have fun with it when you're continuing on with your fly tying.
So
How are you doing?
with the mono, you're starting at the back and wrapping the opposite way that you wrap the pheasant tail?
Did you anchor in your mono?
No,
No? Oh,
you're supposed to do that.
yeah. That's okay.
way?
You know what? Skip the mono for now. We can do it on the next one. Yeah, you'll be fine. I've been noticing a trend of people doing a lot of these in purple and all sorts of crazy bright colors, and I too, I've done it myself. I've made some fluorescent green ones and all sorts of crazy stuff. Yeah, red, yeah. All these guys in BC and in all those lakes, they're swearing by purple right now.
yeah, purple and blue, eh?
Yeah. You don't often see blue underwater, but steelhead, all these BC trout, they just go crazy for it.
So once you wrap the monofilament forward, did you catch it in the front?
Now we're not wrapping all the way up to the bead. We're finishing roughly halfway between the back point there. If you see up on the from there to here, that's the only part we're wrapping that pheasant in the mono.
Did you reverse wrap your mono?
I did the reverse wrap. I did the opposite of the direction that I did the pheasant tail. Yo. Oh, perfect. Okay. Yeah, because I guess these guys don't have mics. So the question was, is that did I reverse the direction of the mono? And yeah, we that way it crosses over and holds it all down, and it doesn't just disappear into what we've done before. And that works with a lot of the different materials. So now we're going to take another section of pheasant tail. We're going to do a little more material this time. We're going to do probably 12 of them. Now this is where we're going to be a little more particular to the length. Now, when I anchor this down, I got to remember that I'm folding this forward, and then I'm also folding it back to form the legs. So now I've got what I'm folding forward, I want to do a little more than half, double than what I would typically do. So anyway, I'm anchoring it here, and then when I fold it forward, I'm still going to have lots of material. So if we got the tip of the tail the right length, you want this to end up around the same length as the tip of the tail.
Trim off that rough stuff that come off of the...
Yeah, you can leave it on because we're going to anchor it on and then trim it off, yeah. He was just asking me if I cut this ahead of time, but we can do this later. We can cut this off after. So one of the most common things is a loose wrap to start. Because what happens is if you do a tight thread and you're wrapping forward, if you can see what I'm doing, it just pushes the material around to the other side. So we say a loose wrap to start, 1 or 2 times around, and check the position, just to see how it's anchored in and how it is. And then we can go forth from there and tighten it down and make sure it's not going to move on us. Feel free to say, hey, we need a beer break.
Trim the excess.
Yeah, you can trim the excess now. Yep. Yeah, trimming the excess is our next step. Now, this is a fairly delicate part. The peacock herl can break very easily. So once we start wrapping it, if you have too much tension and you're pulling on it too hard, it can just snap, and then you got to start all over again.
All 3 fibers of peacock?
Well, normally I would do 3 or 4 fibers at a time, but in our little kits we don't have that much material. So we're just going to do 1 fiber per fly. Now, mind you, this is one of many ways you can tie this fly. Sometimes you want it to be heavier. Well, we would have put in lead wire first. But for now, this would be a good one as a dropper, so it's not as heavy. So I've anchored in I use the butt section of it, just because it'll be stronger. If you anchor it in at the tip, it's really more likely to break.
So you're about halfway up the shank?
I'm right about in the middle right now. Yeah.
Sorry, you started at the tail or the
The butt section. You're asking which end? Yeah. So
to tie in first.
the butt end is much thicker, much easier to anchor in.
Okay.
And then when you're pulling and wrapping it forward, it's far less likely to break.
Okay. So, sorry.
I would have it pointing back towards the bend of the hook.
Okay.
Lay it into position and then put 3 or 4 wraps on there. Now to start off, you start off with a loose wrap so it gets in the right spot. And then from there on, your wraps will get even tighter.
And go forward.
You go forward. You're gonna bring it right up to where the bead is. Yeah, you're bringing your thread right up to where the bead is now. How you doing? So now we're just gonna wrap this peacock curl, and we're gonna keep it fairly tight and try to towards the bead, yeah. Once you got it up there, you don't need that many wraps to hold it into place. 3, 4 wraps will keep it in place. And then just trim off your excess. Sometimes when you're starting out, you might want to use a bigger hook. This one's a little small. Yeah. But it's all the same. I gotta say, this is pretty exciting. This is my first time with this much attention. So, pretty excited about this. Oh, well, whatever. live on pressure. But again, shoot out questions as you need. Now, here's the thing. When you're cutting with, say we were to do this with wire, don't go using your $30 scissors to cut the wire right at the tip. You're just going to destroy your scissors real quick. You can cut it down here at the base of your scissors, or you can just bend it back and forth. And we'll go through that on the Copper John.
So, did you tie this back already?
You're asking if I've tied that back yet? Let's see, where are you at here?
Well, I just did the peacock.
Okay.
And
Oh, shoot. I should have explained. So we need the excess to be hanging over here because we're going to fold it forward.
Again.
Yeah, shoot. I've done this so many times, it's hard to explain all these things. Okay.
Well, so can I just fold it
Let's
back,
see,
do some wraps?
You've got,
No.
no, you have no body or anything, it's all peacock. We might have to scrap that one and start you over
No,
again.
not scrap it. I'm just going to keep doing it.
Okay, well, we don't have much for room for, let's see, how much can we fold forward? Well, maybe.
Well,
So what we're
like,
trying, yeah, we want to start back here and we're working our way forward. So you're already forward, now it's hard to backtrack. So you're
But
just, if you bring your thread back now, what's going to happen is you're folding down all these nice peacock curls and you're losing your fluffiness. So.
well, could I just do,
It's not going to look the same, but you can do whatever you like.
yeah, just so I'm in
Yeah.
the same spot. So if I just do some wraps, I know
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
losing all of that.
let's do
but
that. You're
this'll look-
not going to have the same leg finish as what we're doing, but yeah, you can just anchor it back here, put a couple thread wraps there,
Like that, wrap.
do another section of peacock curl again over top of that,
Okay.
and then fold it forward.
And then fold it forward. Okay. Like just loose ones?
Right there, that's good.
Okay.
So now you've lost a lot of body. I think you brought it back too far. Let's just bring this
Other way.
forward. Oh, I'll let you do it. You've got the right direction. Ah, that's a little better. Whoa, we can see what we're doing. Yeah, it looked better in the dark. Okay. Well, this is it. So I'm just folding this forward to make the wing case. I'm going to anchor that down with a couple of wraps. Then I'm going to split those up by bending them and then folding them down. So now that's going to form the legs to each side, but I'm just getting them in the right positions. Now we're just going to add a couple more thread wraps to hold those in place. Okay. So I took that pheasant tails that we tied in before the peacock, I folded it forward, I anchored it down with 3 or 4 wraps, then I folded it back and down to form the legs at the bottom. I made them fan out, separated roughly 6 to each side, and then folded them down and anchored them. Now, I didn't do this in such a way that I can't backtrack if you guys want to see me do it again. Yeah, you're just putting a hump over top of all that peacock. Now, in the Copper John, we're going to be doing a lot of the same process, but it's just going to be different materials. And I'll try to do a much better job of explaining some of the other intricacies. Does anyone want to see me do that again, or? I'm guessing this is a size 14, and probably Sorry? 3X? I don't know what he's saying. Size 14, yeah, triple the standard length, maybe double. Troy would be the one to ask for that. He put these kits together. How are we doing behind us there, Dana? How you doing? As long as you're having fun.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? If this is your first fly, you're going to hang on to that and you can go back in a couple years and be like, what did I do? Anytime I'm teaching someone to tie flies, I get them to, don't lose your first one. You're going to look back at that 10 years from now and go, what is that? So if you guys have gotten your wing case and your legs done, then that's it. You can go on to your whip finish. So we're all good. Now I do it by hand. Trim off your excess thread. A little bit of glue. A lot of glue? I don't think you need a lot of glue. And that one is done. So we got some beginners and we've got some people that have been doing this for a little while. I can tell by, you know, who's done and how much you guys have invested in your crazy setups there. I'm ashamed to have this little cheap vise here.
I might need help with that.
Whip finish tool. Okay. Anyone got another one? Okay. Now, mind you, my fly is done. I've already taken it out of the vise, but I will show you how the basics of a whip finish tool works. Okay. So what you're going to do is hold it like that. You got it? Got it? So that's, if you can zoom in or if you can see how that's done. Oh, it's not for me. Oh, I've got mine messed up now. Hook it on over there.
Oh, I see. I was doing
Okay.
it that way.
Yeah, you got it. There you go. So then you would just go around like so.
Yeah, okay.
Anyone need to see that again?
Oh, okay.
You mind showing the whip
So
finish
now it's tight.
The freehand? I'm right-handed, so you're gonna have to modify this and reverse it for left, but 2 fingers on top of your thread. Roll your wrist. Okay. I'm gonna roll my wrist while bringing the thread over. So thread up.
Show me how to do it by hand, and that was
So now this thread here is on top of here.
do it by hand.
All right, now I'm going to roll my wrist again. So now I'm back to this, where my index finger is closer to me. And this thread right here is the one that I'm wrapping around the shank.
So the one on the top end of your index.
The one that's straight up is the one I'm wrapping. So if you keep an eye on that, so there's a bit of a loose wrap there at first. Tighten it down, And then it's just a nice fluid motion. Once you get it, it's just like, oh, what the heck? Why haven't I been doing this forever? Okay. I could really show off and do one finger if you want. How are you doing? Do you want to just cut and start over? We'll work on the next one.
Are we doing a second pheasant?
Yeah, we can do the second pheasant tail now. Yep. I've got a whole bunch of excess thread on here I need to cut off. So.
Or is this for grailing?
Oh yeah. You can use it for anything. But if that is your first fly, I wouldn't use it. I'd put it somewhere special. I wish I...
Technically, it's not.
It's not? Okay, well then yeah, run with it. Go with it.
I don't know if I have that one.
I wish I had my first fly. It was the ugliest thing that you could possibly imagine.
I think it was like a snow cone or something. Ice cream cone.
My first fly was tied with a sheet metal vise, a really huge hook that was not a fly tying hook, sewing thread, canary feathers, budgie feathers, all sorts of weird stuff, whatever I could get my hands on. And by the end of it, that thing was god awful. It was horrible. So,
You have to try. I feel like the smaller stuff, the smaller hooks is harder. Like it would be.
when you're starting out, smaller hooks can be a little more difficult, yeah. Your proportions are so small and yeah. Are we still in focus there, Dana? Good? Okay. So it's clear that I wasn't very descriptive on some of the techniques. So yeah, we're going to do another pheasant tail. So I pull the fiber straight. That lines up all the tips, right? All the tips of the fibers are going to be the same. If I was to cut it when it's like this, then they're all going to be tapered. So I just pull it like that and keep it nice and straight and then strip it. So now all my tips are lined up. Now the tail length should be somewhere close to the length of your hook. Any longer and you're just going to have a hard time. So measure it out so I know that where I'm going to be anchoring it is roughly where the edge, where my fingernails are. So I change my grip and that's where I need to anchor it down. So 1 or 2 loose thread wraps just to make sure everything's good, and then start cinching it down with a little bit of a firmer tension. Now while we're only anchoring that down in that one little spot, 3 or 4 thread wraps. So this is where I confused you guys last time. So I'm going to fold this back now and anchor it again with 1 or 2 turns. So that's good. Problem with clear mono is you lose it on a table covered with scratches really easily. There we are. Now you don't want to move that thread forward. You just want to keep it in a tiny little area.
In the middle or right at the
right above the point of the hook.
Okay.
So if your thread is hanging down from the shank, it should be really close to the point of that hook.
Okay.
And that is the far back of the fly. So now, I'm going to take that mono again. And we're going to do a loose wrap again to start. And now firmly lock it into place while moving the thread towards the bead. So now your pheasant tail fiber, your mono is all anchored in that same point.
At the back.
At the back, yeah. Hanging off the back, yeah. I think we're going to walk around and check out everybody here. So, how you doing? Okay, so that's good.
Okay.
So now it is pretty darn close, that's good. So now you don't need this mono here because once you tie it forward, it's just going to get in the way.
Okay.
So one tip is, if you were to tie that forward, you might have a harder time cutting it where you want it. So now you're going to wrap your thread forward, and then you don't have to worry about trimming it because you've pre-trimmed it.
All the way up to
Yeah,
the...
you can go up fairly close to the bead. We're going to build up a bit more of a body on this one. The
Okay.
last one came out kind of skinny.
Well, mine didn't.
No, that's okay though. Yeah, that looks good. You got that whole back and forth thing. It
Yeah.
works really well for doing your legs, and it's
Exactly, yeah.
not a whole
Once
bunch
you
of
figure out
extra
the
material.
proportion,
Yeah, once you get your proportions down, yeah. Oh, he's going all flashy. I like it. No, I got mine. I found it. It was just hard to see. It's like with all the lights and all the scratches, I was like, what? Where to go?
The mono? Yeah.
I've got another set in the truck I forget. The next fly is smaller, I'm getting them. Don't make fun of me.
Okay, the beads popped off.
Beads
Like,
popped off.
halfway through.
You
The-
should get that
both
on
of them
video.
popped off the front.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Two is inferior.
but the rest of it looks good.
Yeah.
So, the only thing is now this, your legs are going to be really long,
Yeah.
but it'll still catch fish.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I said before, it's more that we're doing it for us than catching than the actual fish. Fish see something that they want to, you know, inspect underwater. They're going to use their mouth. Hey, look, I caught one. Wow. Did you like that whole folding back and forth to get the legs and the tail? And no, it's not the way you do it.
So I'm gonna go by the thread, or should the thread be ahead?
It should be ahead. So if you want it further, then you you can always move your thread back.
This is just to give it body or a lead.
Yeah.
Your legs forward.
So you have your legs coming out the back of the hurl, or do you not use any hurl? Or
I do. It's just that way the legs aren't hiding the peacock curl on the sides.
And trim that off, right?
Yeah.
I'm just doing it that way because it's simple, and when you make dozens of them, it's just like once you really get that, once you get the proportions and that motion, it's just fold forward, tie, fold back, tie, let finish, you're done.
He just holds that.
Yeah, just reinforce it. That's
How you making it?
Now the peacock, right?
So now
and then
you've got your mono on there too?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So now you're gonna predict where your wing case is gonna be.
Okay.
And so you're going to bring your thread back to roughly there, and that's where you're going to anchor, and then
So
Yeah.
anchor the peacock.
no, you're going to do your pheasant tail
casing
next,
first. And
your
this
wing
is about the
casing.
12.
Roughly 12. That way you get 6 per side for your legs if you're doing it the way I'm doing it.
Or
then
either
it's-
with 2 on one side and 10 on the other.
Yeah, it's
Get that lopsided one.
you know what? Sometimes you get a weird spin in your fly, and then that's what catches the fish, and it's like, what just happened? One day I got a little bit of that cotton fluff from the trees stuck on my fly, and it floated through everything, and I caught so many fish, and then that fluff came off, and then I wasn't catching anything.
So about the same.
About the same length as the tip of your tail there. That'll end up being a good proportion once we're done. Thanks for helping too.
More than happy. And then I can whip finish it and then cut.
But these ones you don't. Yeah, you cut the thread. You don't cut those off. Those will be legs hanging down.
But you don't think they're too long.
Yeah,
little bit
you
long,
got
you're-
the
kinda
butt.
got the
You
butt
tied
end.
it in at the tip for your wing case instead of at the butt.
Butt end.
I should mention that. I'm
yeah.
tying that in at the butt. Okay. Okay. So I wasn't quite clear, so we had one incident here. So let's get this thing caught up here. So I'm gonna wrap these hurls, well, the pheasant tail. So I'm gonna wrap that forward, 3, 4, 5.
I kind of did that one.
So you're not even wrapping that all the way to the front?
No, I am doing it roughly halfway between where we started and the back of the bead. If you go a little bit further forward, it's not that big of a deal. We need to make room for other materials. So now that I've wrapped that pheasant tail forward the one direction, again, I'm just going to reverse wrap. So the opposite direction, this mono or 4X tippet, forward to reinforce all those materials, all that material. Trim that off. I'm going to use a little more pheasant tail than last time on this one.
Sorry, the mono is going all the way to the front or no?
No, just to where you finished off with your pheasant. So again, I'm lining up the tips of the pheasant with the tail. So it's all about the same length right now. I'm going to anchor this in, and this time we're going to try to get a little more volume to that midsection there. Ooh, that was close. I almost knocked over my beer. That would have been game over.
Okay, so
Sure. What you
I'm not really sure like where I'm at in the
So you've wrapped your mono forward.
yeah.
Did you tie the thread around it to hold it into place?
But this, the pheasant tail that I wrapped around the body,
Yeah.
where should it be on the top? Or doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. Once you've wrapped it forward and you've anchored it into place, the pheasant tail, once you've wrapped the pheasant tail forward, you've anchored it into place, you can trim off your excess.
Okay.
So we're done with that now. So if you've wrapped the thread around the pheasant tail and the mono, you can cut off all your excess.
Everything.
Yeah, because we're done with that section. Okay? Now, the kit provides one peacock hurl per fly. I'm going to show you what it looks like when we do the peacock curl from the peacock eye. This is a much thicker hurl. It's a lot fuzzier. There's a lot more fluff, material, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to anchor this in. I've got 3 fibers here. This is just an example of what you can do later on when you're really experimenting. And I'm going to twist that. Twist all these. Not that many times, because if you over twist, you are going to break them. Now I'm going to wrap them, and we're going to get a little more volume out of it this time. So 3 or 4 wraps of thread just to anchor it into place. I'm going to lift up my thread to get it out of the way and trim off my excess hurl. So now we're left with your pheasant tail to do your wing case, your legs, and then that's it. How's everyone doing? You've already done, you're just playing on your phone, you're ready to go. Okay, so we're going to fold that forward. Just a couple wraps, just a loose wraps, make sure it's in the right spot. Now I'm going to flare that out. Then from up on top there, I'm going to fold them down, and that's going to form the legs. So whip finish. As long as he's having fun. Yeah. So there's our bead hook. There's other packages here. Probably raid one of the packages. How's everyone doing? How are you doing?
Okay, so this is what happened. Remember when I asked you, you said you could trim the rest of it off? I still needed to fold it. I was one step behind, so I still need to fold it back and then put the peacock on.
Nope. Nope. We're doing another section of pheasant tail altogether for the next step.
Oh.
So the tail and the body was one section of pheasant tail. Now the wing case and the legs is another section.
Okay.
So you're good. You're much better now.
Okay. So
now what we're going to do is these tips are going to be facing back, and you want to line those up with the tips of the tail, so they're about even. You're going to hold it in place, and then anchor it in. It's hard to point with my big fat fingers, but you're going to anchor it in roughly about there with 3 or 4 thread wraps. Loose to start, and just to test your position. And you see, if you let go of that, with those loose wraps, you can still position it. You can move it back and forth, and if you changed your length, you can still do that now. You can pull it forward, you can pull it back.
Okay.
because those 3 or 4 thread wraps isn't enough to really anchor it.
Right.
So that looks good. Now you're going to anchor that down even more with another 3 or 4, but just at a little tighter tension. And the wax in the thread should hold its tension. Now you can trim that off now, this excess here. You're going to leave this. This is what we need for later.
Okay.
Just be careful, yeah.
Does this get covered up or no?
Yeah, it gets covered up. And you can also move the thread forward more and hold it down. You can hide it and build it up.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to go to your peacock curl. You can do 1 if you want, or you can do 2, but
I'll just do 1.
Just do 1. So you're going to tie it in at the butt section, but you're going to want it facing back.
Okay.
Right? So you can trim off that little bit of white because it's a little bit of annoying to have that in there. Okay. Now, you can use that little white area to where that's where you want to anchor it. Excuse me. So you don't have to have it that far forward because then you're just going to have to cut off that excess again. So you can literally just move that back just a little bit, like another 1/8 of an inch, and there. Now you can start anchoring it into place with 3 or 4 thread wraps and work your thread back to where the butt of that other pheasant tail is. Not all the way back too far because we're going to end up covering your body section.
Okay.
And the longer this is, the harder it is to fill with peacock because this is a very delicate fiber.
Okay.
So you got it back a little too far, but
Undo 1.
undo 1 or 2 times and let's see how that goes. Yeah, that should work. Okay.
I might just do 1
Yeah,
right
yeah, do a couple more closer to the bead, make sure everything stays in place. Because the last thing you need is materials to slide out when you're after you've already done it.
Okay.
So your thread needs to be fairly close to your finishing point, so right up next to your bead. There, that should do it. So now you're going to wrap that peacock curl. Yeah. And you're just going to keep nice tight wraps and move that forward.
Should I have fluffed it first?
When you're doing this later, since you obviously you're going to be wanting to do this on a regular basis,
Yes.
it is easier to do the whole 3 or 4 peacock curls twisted, and it gets crazy in volume. It looks good.
Yeah.
But for now, you're getting the proportions,
Yeah.
you're getting the techniques down. So that's good. Now you can wrap some thread around that to hold that in place, keeping it in the same spot. You're not going to move the thread back and forth.
Oh, okay. I always think that that's actually not holding it in place. But it is.
It is. So the thing is, you got to make sure you're wrapping. So I noticed that you're wrapping with this still back here. So
Yeah.
there's only 1 thread wrap holding that in place.
So,
Put it forward and wrap it a couple more times.
how do you just do that with your left hand?
Oh, I've switched back and forth like crazy. Okay, so that's good. Now you can trim off that excess, or you can go back and forth if you feel as though you can. And
I might just
no,
do 1 more.
Okay. You don't need to do too much with the thread. You can go back and forth with this hurl if you
build it
want
up?
to. If you want to try and build it up.
Okay, for
But
now I won't.
now this is your emergency sort of backup. You have hurl, it's on there, it's anchored into place. So if this breaks, when you try to do more,
It doesn't matter.
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay. I'll just trim it.
Yeah, you can trim that off.
Okay.
So you're going to take your wing case material, fold it forward, but make sure, your thread is in the right spot. It's right close to the back of that bead. Fold that forward. Hold it down with the tip of your finger and do a loose wrap over the top. One should do it for now. Now let go with your one finger to see how it is. So here you can position it, you can check the tension. Sometimes when you fold it forward, one is sitting over here, you missed it.
Yeah.
So this is a good time to check. So it looks good, it's centered.
Okay.
Throw 3 more wraps around on that. That's good. A little more tension to it, and then that's good. Perfect. So now here's my technique. You just kind of flail it around, bend it back, get a somewhat even amount of legs on each side. And now you're just going to form a pinch with your fingers and push it down from above. And you're going to push those fibers down. And then you're going to wrap over those to hold those in place. So after a couple wraps, you can let go, see how it is. And if it doesn't look good, you can back up and do it again. Because right now you can't see how are the legs, positioning, right? So you got legs up top, you got legs on the side, but you can pull them down and then throw a couple more thread wraps, or you can back it up and you can do it again. This looks way better than the first one.
Yeah.
How's everyone doing? Everyone has enough beer? Everyone's... I know you're good. I don't have to worry about you at all. Hey.
You look good up there.
Thanks. Thanks for coming.
Of course.
I wish there was more vices you guys could have been tying too.
Oh no, we came to support.
Mm-hmm.
Hang out, talk, make the blues.
Cool.
Hang out, be cool. Look at you.
I gotta
cleaned
go
up and
move
everything.
Trina's bed tonight, so
Oh, yeah, that's right. She's moving.
yeah. Okay.
So you
I'm gonna
fixed the
get
truck?
kind of.
Kinda. It's patched.
Yeah, it's patched.
All right. Nice.
Where are we at?
Copper John. All right, buddy.
Copper John. Let's do it. So you're good?
Yeah.
How's that whip finish tool? You think you're gonna be good with that?
Good, not really, but I have an idea. I always want to.
Nope.
Backwards.
Nope. I gotta go on this side of you to figure this out. Okay. See you later.
Okay.
There you go. You got it. There you go. Okay, up next we got the Copper John. So same, we've got the bead on the hook. We all did that ahead of time. Makes it a lot easier. How you doing? Gonna get a thread base started. Simply just throwing a whole bunch of wraps of thread on there. You're back.
All the way to the end.
We're gonna go right to the top of that bend of the hook.
You just started halfway though? You started right at the end.
I just threw some thread on there and just started wrapping just to get it anchored into place. Well, we're gonna, yeah, the bead might get in your way, but I don't usually have any issues. But let's get all this material out here. So, goose biots. They have a natural little curve to them.
That's one.
Well, you're supposed to use two. I only had two in my bag, so if you can get them positioned where the curves are going away from each other and the tips are lined up, sometimes that takes a little bit of work. Yeah, getting them out of the bag can be difficult too. Okay. So a fairly standard thing is to, do roughly the length of your hook. The shank of the hook is roughly the length of your tail. That's fairly standard with most nymphs. Now goose biots are sometimes a little tricky to anchor into place because I want to roll around the hook. Throw a couple loose wraps again, cinch it down when you feel as though they're in a good position. Now I am going to anchor these, I'm going to keep moving my thread forward to develop a bit of a body. I want to keep it fairly even. If I was to cut these off back here and then move the thread forward, I would end up with a lump here. And then later on when I'm wrapping the wire on, you're going to see it. And if you get an uneven body underneath that wire, it'll form gaps, it'll form lumps, and it'll just not look right. So I'm going to move the thread forward, anchoring those biots into place, keeping it nice and even.
So where did you anchored it by it's kind of in the middle of the hook?
I started at the top of the bend of the hook and I worked my way forward just to build the body. And I'm gonna leave a bit of a gap at the front. Now I'm going to move that thread back to the top of the bend of the hook, right where we started before. And I'm going to take the wire and I'm going to anchor it in there as well. How many pieces we got? We got one big piece, okay. Yeah, we're ready for the wire if you are. Again, with keeping the body nice and even, I want the wire to go the whole length of our body before I anchor it down, so that way I'm not going to form a little lump. I had a lump in the wire, so I just pulled it out and started over. Now, some of you have a material holder on yours, which is pretty cool, but so later on, if we were to do other materials underneath this wire, you could have that material holder just, bam, there's your, slap your wire in there.
So when you wound the wire, did you do it right from the bead all the way back?
Yeah, you could do that. You can anchor that, because that way it keeps that body, you know, your thread wraps all even. So the wire underneath the thread is going all the way up to here. Right, so now this is still, so that way when we start moving the wire forward and wrapping it and progressively moving forward, we're keeping it nice and even. Yeah, I'm moving the thread over to where we're going to stop the wire moving forward. We're going to stop it roughly around here. I do? There we go. I'll remember that for next time. So I'm just going to go ahead and start wrapping this wire. I'm going to keep it all nice and fairly tight and touching, because that's all this body is. It's just copper wire. Oh, I got a little bit of gap already. Now this is a very fine copper wire. Sometimes you can, you know, do different thicknesses. There's a medium. That might be a little easier next time. It definitely takes less wraps to build up this much of a body. I'm not overlapping any of this wire, no. I'm just trying to keep it as tight as I can, but ooh, got a bit of a gap there. So the space between the back here, so the length of your hook, right? Anywhere from the halfway point, maybe to 3/4, will be enough for a good tail. I'm going to go a little further forward and That way I can really wrap it and anchor it down well. So now, here's what I was saying before. Do not use your expensive scissors to cut right at the tip with that wire. It's just too hard on your scissors. So I'm going to bend it back and forth a couple times and then do a circular motion, and that usually breaks it off nice and flush. Oh, this is some good wire. There we go. Now mind you, how's everyone doing? Beer break. You know what? I wouldn't worry too much about a little tag. You can probably get it to anchor down with your thread.
So you said don't go all the way, just go to about.
You don't need to, because we got a bunch of other materials that stick in here in that last little gap.
Okay.
Now to remember to have that wire forward and wrap over top instead of the wire back and wrap, because that you'll get a much better anchoring. There you go. How's everyone? I don't want to go too fast, so typically when you really get into these flies, they're 2 minutes less. So. Okay, 22 minutes will still suffice when you're. Okay, so the next step is the flash. So, just a little bit of Flashaboo, crystal flash, anything. This is what we're going to be, this is going to end up being our last piece that we move forward. But we got to anchor it in first so it's on top. So, just a little bit of a tag and having it hanging out the back. Right, you want most of your material hanging out the back. I gotta make sure it stays on the top though. So again, a couple loose wraps just to make sure it stays in place while I tighten it on. This is not staying in place. There we go, got it. You got your flash in place. Next is this nice rubber band looking material called thin skin. I'm going to work with this next. So I'm going to cut a little bit of a taper at the end of it just to make it a little easier to tie it in. Just a tiny little corners cut off. Oh, you didn't get one? I was cutting the two tips off. Now my piece is a little curly, so it's hard to see. And then of course, I've got a black shirt on. So can you see that? Yeah, there you go. So I'm not quite rounding it off. I just want a smaller section of it to anchor it into place. It'll make it a lot easier. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and put that in right on top of the flash. Now, anchor that in good, because we're going to be pulling on that at pretty decent tension, right? You don't want that popping out. So I would check it now, because if it pops out easy now, now's the time to fix it. Okay? So they've given us peacock curl to do this next section. Now this next section, you can do it in peacock curl, you can do it in dubbing. There's lots of different materials you can do for this. Play around with it. There's some nice crystal ice dub in peacock color that works well for this. A little faster too, right? This is fly tying. There's not 100% one way to do any of these flies. I'm going to cut this off and go ahead and anchor that in. So now all three of my materials are all anchored roughly the same spot. The flash, your thin skin, and this hurl is all in the same spot. So we're going to start with the hurl, and we're going to move that hurl, wrapping it around. Oops. Maybe we should move the thread forward to the base of the bead so it's out of our way, right? Okay, so we're going to wrap that hurl forward to make the thorax, or the lumpy bit at the front, if you want to just, stick to common descriptions. Now, getting used to the dexterity and the subtle little things for moving this material and wrapping it takes a little while. As you can see how I just did that, I've done that so many times. It's like do. No big deal. I'm going to trim off the excess of that hurl. Now, I have extra pheasant tail. Now, you can use all sorts of different materials to make the legs on a copper john. You don't even have to put legs on a copper john. I just happen to have this, so I'm going to use it. So this is back to our pheasant tail material. If you've got stuff left, let's use it. I have a rotary vise. I can just flip mine over. If you don't, you can always take your hook out, flip it over. All right. So I'm just going to take my leftover, what is it, what? It's quite a bit of fiber. I'm going to split that in half for the next one. Let's say roughly 8 pieces of the pheasant tail. Now I'm going to try to spread them out so they're not just one little clump sticking out the bottom. So one loose wrap, and then I can position it where I want it. Now, I want this to be from the back of this bead to roughly where the barb is on the hook. That's a good amount of length. It'll look proportionate, it'll look right. If you don't get it exactly like that, well, run with it anyway. Okay?
You tie that in front of the hurl?
I put it in behind the bead, in front of the hurl, and I put it on the bottom.
Yep.
Okay? How's everyone doing? We're good? I see an empty beer glass over there. Bad boy. Dana said you need to have full glasses. Oh, see, now I just made a mistake. I did my loose wraps, I positioned it, didn't anchor it. So it just pulled right out. So I got to do it over again. So I got 4 wraps extra just to anchor that in. Trim that nice and flush. Sorry?
You got the wings or the wing case right on the bottom?
Right now the wing case is on the bottom. I haven't done anything with the wing case right now. We're just anchoring in the whatever we had for material for the legs. No, the wing case is hanging out the bottom because I reversed my hook right now. But I am about to rotate it back because we're done with the bottom of the fly. You can trim off your excess of the pheasant tail after you're done, but do not trim off your thin skin and your flash because we're just about to do that right now. So I started with one wrap of thread over the thin skin just to get it in the right position. Now I'm going to cinch it down pretty good. And 3 wraps just to hold it in place. And trim that nice and flush. Now I'm going to pull on this a little bit to trim it so that once it springs back, it's even shorter than where I can get access with the scissors. So see what I mean? So I pulled it, cut it, and then it snaps back and it's nice and tight. That was the rubbery, elasticy material. That's what I folded forward. That's your wing case. Yeah. Well, do 1 loose wrap of thread over it first, just to kind of get it into the right position. Now you're going to pull on it a little bit to stretch it, make sure it's nice and tight. Pull on the thin skin. Pull down on the thread. Now you're going to do 3 or 4 more wraps just to hold it in place. Make sure it's not going to come out. Some good tension on there, yeah. Now take your scissors, stretch that excess thin skin up, trim it as tight as you can to that bead. Sometimes it takes a cut at 2 different angles to get it nice. And it should spring back and be fairly tight. Now, the last step is just moving this little bit of flash over top of that wing case. Three wraps, that should do it. I'm not taking my shirt off. So I did move the flash forward and anchored it down in the same fashion I did the thin skin. Over top of this, yeah. Put it roughly in the middle, anchor it in. How's everyone doing? That's looking really good, even from here. It looks, you're at the last step. You're at the last step. You trim that off, you do your whip finish, and you're done. You only need like 3 or 4 wraps, and then you can trim it and then finish wrapping to hide whatever tag might be left. So if you do too many wraps right now, you're gonna have a hard time doing your finish. That should be good now, yeah. Yeah, now we're ready for whip finish and we're all set. We're done.
What do you do with crystal?
Crystal flash just goes forward over top of the thin skin. It's just adding a little bit of sparkle to the wing case. Now, one of the nice things is when you're doing this wing case like this, if you want to make the investment, some UV resin, make a nice ball of UV resin on there, and it makes that flash really pop. You can also do it with 5-minute epoxy. 4-minute epoxy, whatever. Don't recommend the stuff at the dollar store. It'll either fall off or turn so yellow you won't be able to see any of your flash. So just gonna whip finish that off. There we go. How's everyone doing? We're good. Oh, look at that. You even got loon and you got your UV light. I'm just throwing a little bit of water base on there for now.
Yeah, that works too.
Yeah. So I'll hold this up, if I can, in such a way that you can see how the two goose biots look from the top.
I did a bunch of reference.
So you can see how the curves of the goose biots go away from each other, right? So that's how your tail should look.
Go over this again.
Oh, we are making another one. Oh, the whip finish?
Yeah. Oh, I lost my piece of flash.
Uh-oh.
Shit.
You've already cut your thread? Oh, you have enough there to anchor it down.
Think so?
So you haven't done your whip finish. You can back off probably 4 or 5 wraps because you've got a lot of thread there.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Okay,
a
let's
lot.
let's not go too crazy because if we lose that thin skin, we're not getting that back.
I'm not getting it back. Yeah. Okay.
So if you push it forward with your finger, you should be able. Yeah, you got a lot there that you can be able to anchor that down with it. No problem. There, that should be good. There, that should be enough. I would cut it and then do the whip finish.
Cut what?
Oh, whatever's. Oh, I guess there's. Yeah, there's. See that little tiny tag?
But I think if I put the
Whip finish over top.
well, that and also once you put the epoxy on.
Yeah, if you did
would cover
epoxy,
it
then
up, right?
yeah. We just don't have any epoxy.
Well, I probably wouldn't do it on this one, but okay. So
That's a huge difference.
I
This
know.
looks good. This does.
okay, so I have to practice this. So this goes this way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now put this lower. There.
Oh.
There you go. So now remember, you're only moving. No, you had it right.
Okay.
You had it right. Hook over that. Sideways. There. Now you are keeping this one in place, right? And this is going over top of this one. So as you spin it around, see, there you go. See how that one is the one going around,
Yeah.
and this one's staying in place. And you probably, since it's bearing, you
Right.
don't have to turn this manually. It will follow your movements. There, good. See, now you just push it forward, and it should spin on its own. You want to keep that a little closer. Oh, we lost it. Lost
'Cause,
it. We lost it on the alignment there.
Yeah, because I just end up going around the eye.
So,
The $1,000,000 question. Okay, we're gonna get back to you. We're just gonna shut this down,
Yeah.
we're
and
done.
then we can help out and
Okay.
and work on that. So,
So
anyways,
go a little faster on this one.
no, that's it.
We're
We're done.
done?
We're done one. And any closing comments?
Oh, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing this. So, this opportunity was amazing. Yeah. Hit me up with questions anytime.
Okay, cool. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Next week, we're going to have the Clouser minnow and the Creelix minnow, probably two of the most popular streamer patterns, especially around here. The Clouser's probably fished everywhere for every species of fish. So that's next Thursday, and then the Thursday after that is going to be the mystery fly box night. So you guys are going to lead. So whoever shows up, you're basically going to pull out one of these packs. You don't know what's in it. You're going to have to sit down, see if you do a better job than Jarod, which I think that's going to be tough to beat. But anyways, you're just going to walk us through a random bag of materials. And
I'm definitely going to be here for that one. That'll be fun. Yeah. Any one of you
whoever
guys.
shows up. So it's going to be led by you guys
Nice.
in 2 weeks from now. So that'll be our kind of our little Christmas party. And then we'll take a 2-week hiatus. And then we'll be back for January, which will be our salt month. So we'll be doing crabs, shrimp, and bait fish patterns. And that's kind of in getting ready for us heading to the Oman. And then hopefully if there's internet and stuff over there, we're going to run a Thursday night live from the Oman. Unfortunately, you guys won't be there.
I won't, but
Well, yeah.
come on.
I mean, the material's free, but that's about it. So if you can get there, we'll have free material for you guys. Anyways, appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks a lot. Okay. How are you doing? You want to go through that next one?
I don't have any more goose bullets, so.
Yeah, I only have